Hello, Medieval Dynasty fans. We are back with another video about the most recent Reddit AMA held by RenderCube on November 20th. And we're going to look at the top 10 questions that they answered here in this video today. I do encourage you to check out the link that'll be in the description below to the entire Q&A. We did our best to highlight some of the better questions that we thought were most important to the future development of the game, but that doesn't necessarily mean that what our top 10 choices were are your top 10 choices, so make sure you check that out. We also tried to avoid duplicating any of the answers to some of the questions that were asked in the AMA had duplicate answers because they were sort of tangentially related to one another, and therefore we dropped those completely. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the first question. If you're a fan of child labor, hey, guess what? There's some good news coming to Medieval Dynasty. When asked whether or not there will be child-appropriate jobs in the village, such as, picking berries, picking up sticks, digging latrines, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, will that actually come into the game? They actually said working children and teenagers are on their agenda. They just need to iron out some of the adjustment issues for them, but it will probably happen sooner than later. So that's actually going to be something pretty cool. Your future children can now do chores. When asked whether or not there will actually be achievements in the game, they did say they do plan on adding those a little bit closer to the 1.0 release, because remember everyone, we are still in early access for Medieval Dynasty, and as it gets closer to official release, when they have almost everything done, they will be adding achievements for those of you who only feel validated based on the amount of achievements your Steam profile has. Now this one was actually pretty big because I know a couple people had actually asked me whether or not third person was available in the game. If you get motion sickness or something along those lines, first person games can be very disorienting for a small subset of the community out there. So they don't like playing in first person. They like playing in third person. Currently, Medieval Dynasty does not have that, but they are saying they are working on adding a third-person perspective to at least look at our character, but it's something that they want to add maybe later in production. I kind of hope they go back on that and allow us to play in third person. Personally, I like first person. I've been a fan since Elder Scrolls. I'm used to first-person perspective. Doesn't bother me at all. Though just having third person to look at the character, then being forced back into first person, if you are one of those people who have issues with motion sickness and nausea in first person, this isn't going to help you. So hopefully they change it so you can play in third person if you wish. Talking about bandits, once again, we are going to be able to fight them. Yeah, and they are working on their combat system. This is very important because anyone who's actually played Medieval Dynasty, which is pretty much everyone here who's watching this video, and if you're not, check it out on Steam right now, you know the combat's terrible. I'm just going to be frank with you. It is very bad. It just is. There's no other way around it. It's just not a very good combat system. Though, I will say on the credit of RenderCube, the developers, that that's not really what their main focus is. Right? It's a medieval sim, not a medieval murder box. So you can really kind of, not really fault them for it because it's not a main focus. Though they would get a lot more praise if they increase it, as with any game company who has, an area of their game that's not necessarily up to par. When they make it better, just overall makes a better game, whether or not you feel like engaging in combat or not. But with bandits coming, there's definitely going to be a need to increase that combat system, or the bandits aren't going to be an enjoyable part of the game, just an annoyance. What is the vision for the function of villagers that are put in the role of storekeepers? Okay, so we were going to be able to make people be storekeepers, like assigning workers to resource storage and food storage buildings, because right now you have those and they just kind of sit there. You could put people in there, but all they do is stand. So what they're working on right now, okay, after they get through some of the optimization issues, is the storekeepers are going to be simple sellers for storage items. I'm actually really curious if our villagers will then be able to purchase these items from our store when they're hungry and whatnot, and therefore we as the village owners make money off of the resources that are stored in the buildings. This would be great when it comes to actually having to pay our taxes. So, I mean, hey, that's awesome. I hope they consider adding that. When asked what one feature is that they're going to be releasing to the community that they are most excited about, I'll tell you what, this is probably my most exciting thing that they're planning on adding, is they said whenever possible, adding a co-op would be amazing for us and the players. I agree completely. Co-op in this game would be awesome. And also one of the things that I know many of the people who watch my videos and interact with me on my streams and whatnot always ask, is this co-op? Is this multiplayer? Because they would like to play this with friends. Let's face it, one of the most popular survival games out there right now, which is a sandbox, is Conan Exiles. That is co-op. It's multiplayer. You can buy a server and you can play with your friends. A lot of them too. That would be, I would love to buy a Medieval Dynasty server on like G-Portal or something. No, they don't support this video. They could, but they don't, just so you know. To buy a server, set it up for Medieval Dynasty, and have, 20, 30 people playing on one server would be amazing. I mean, that many people, you may have problems with the size of the map. Maybe they'll increase that in the future if they decide to add co-op that actually has a number of players. But even with only 5 players or whatever, that would still be very, very cool to see. And definitely one of my most looked forward to additions to the game. I hope that comes out sooner rather than later. Asking whether or not they're going to have swords and weapons later on, this is something that's cool. They said, if we have some cool quest ideas, then we can play around with rare items as well, okay? And swords, they might come later along with bandits, winky face. So therefore, we're going to start seeing these swords, probably later with bandits, is what they're actually saying. All right, which is awesome because right now my poor blacksmith is really tired of making hoes and scythes and all these other little farming instruments when he really wants to make swords and spears and axes and all that fun stuff. Hey, who wouldn't want to do that? When asked whether we'll ever be able to have further customization on interior buildings, such as adding lights and furniture, they did say interior customization is something that they are working on. They just need to figure out how it will interact with NPC behaviors, but it is in the plans. Pathing issues may be a bit of an issue. We've seen some weird stuff with the NPCs standing on top of roofs, levitating in the air, walking through walls, all sorts of weird stuff. So hopefully we'll get a chance to see that here in the future. Now, are you tired of the way your village looks? Is it weird to see the same building 10 times? Well, guess what? They do plan on adding a few more building variations and diversify them with details. So that way, each one of our houses will have the ability to have its own personality and will definitely make our villages feel more realistic than, say, a modern 21st century building development where every house is exactly the same as the next. And our final question that was asked, I was wondering whether or not they'll be implementing a crafting system for workers, like a min-max system or a priority system. Let's say we want workers to have 10 hammers, then 10 pickaxes, then 10 shovels, then rest of the time craft arrows. Do they have any plans on doing that? And they actually said this is something that they added in with their old plans when the whole system was a lot simpler, but they do plan on checking back to see if they can add it with the current system. Adding a worker queue would be amazing so that we could actually tell people what we want as the village leaders, and they would then work on those in order as the queues come in. I really hope they add these things because this would really be a big benefit to the game, and we hope we get to see it. Anyway, once again, if you want to see all the questions that were asked, you can check out the link in the description below. Hopefully, we'll get some good response and feedback from some of this. If you have any thoughts about anything, leave the comments below. I'd love to read what it is you guys thought about this Q&A. Anyway, if you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing. And as always, God bless.